Welcome to Demonstrated Success webinar in the afternoon, and we're talking about the modular and the benchmark assessments. They're actually the same thing. So it should say modular and interim assessments for student growth. And what do I want to tell you? You have this control panel. If you've been to one of our webinars before, or any webinar in GoToWebinar, you'll see that there are some handouts on the bottom. So there are 4 handouts down there. One of them is this PowerPoint. If you want to use that, please feel free to take it. And one is a certificate for professional development hours. And another one is how to log into the Demonstrated Success website. If you haven't done that already, you can use these instructions to get there. And the last one shows you the different choices of the modular assessments for science and ELA and math. I hope you can all see my screen. Sometimes I forget to start the screen, but it looks like it's on and it looks like you can hear me. In the area that says questions, if you could type in and say, yes, I can hear you, or yes, I can see the screen. And if nobody responds, I'm going to assume that you can't hear me. Uh-oh, nobody's responding. Let's see. Oh, yes. I see. Yep. Yep, people are telling me they can hear me and see. That's great. You can see me? I hope not. It says I can hear you and see you, but I hope you can't see me, but you may be able to. I don't think so. You can see my screen. So let's get started. This is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to answer the following questions. What are the interim assessments? Why use them? How do I administer the assessments? And where do I get the results? And how do you read them? I have a poll here. I just want to know where people are with them before we really get going. Some people have used them quite a bit. Some haven't used them at all. First, I want to know what your role is. So I'm going to set out that poll. Give you a second to answer it. You should be able to see a poll right now. And so far, everybody, got administrators, special ed, building and SAU administrators, classroom teachers, and other. Tell me what you are as an other. Okay, thanks. Pretty much everybody, just about everybody has voted. All right, thank you. It's good to know. I have to figure out how to stop it now, close the poll. So I want to talk about these. If you've already used them, you probably don't need the detail for all of this. So I don't want to go into it really too far if you really know, if you've used this before. So what are they and why should they use them? Before we get into that, I'm going to give you the other poll. And for some reason, it looks like I have 2 of them and it should only be 1. So if you could answer this, what is the main reason you joined us today? You could choose more than one answer. And I would have left a space there for you to enter in some comments, but I didn't know how to do that. I'm not sure that you can do that with this. So what's the main reason you joined us? Was it you've never used these, you want to learn about them, you want to know why to use them, how to use them? So a lot of we're all over the place. I need to know how to get in and read the data. I needed a refresher on how and why. Okay, so we're kind of all over. So I'm going to go over, I'm going to close the poll. I really am I'll just go through this and we'll just go step by step. So what are they and why should I use them? They are part of the SAS system. And I found out what the other person is a para. If you type in a question where it says questions, I will notice, usually there are 2 of us doing this, and the second person usually watches for the questions, but it's me alone, so I might not notice your question right away, but I will notice it. So the modular assessments, there are a lot of choices for them. They are optional, and you can take them whenever you want. They started, I think this year they were ready by October 9th or 17th, something like that, at the beginning of the year. The questions are really based on the Common Core. So whatever math program or reading program or science program you're using, you can be sure that these questions are based on the Common Core and match what is going to be tested in the SAS. You can give them at any grade level, not any grade level, 3 through 8, But any of those grade levels, 3 through 8, can take any of those grade levels. So if you have a 6th grader who's functioning at a 3rd grade level, you can give that 6th grader the 3rd grade test. If you have a 4th grader who's functioning at an 8th grade level, you can give the 4th grader the 8th grade test, and that can really be handy. The assessments are for, it says clusters here, but they're really for domains of standards. So for math, it's measurement and data, equations and expressions. It depends on what the grade level is, but I'll show you which assessments you can have for each grade and for each subject. But it's a much smaller cut. So once you finish teaching a unit or 2 units, you could use one of these assessments. They're available through the same website that we use the summatives for. It's the airask.org. It's New Hampshire portal, airask.org. If somebody knows how to administer the summative test, they can easily administer these. It's exactly the same. We can watch children's progress. We can see gaps. We can really dig into the data because we can see the questions. We can see how students answer the questions. They're really great. That you can determine flexible groupings. You can, if you started using a new program, you can determine what the impact of that program is. Maybe not the first year, but the 2nd year perhaps. Each of the modulars focus on a group of standards and not the entire curriculum. The interims focus on standards throughout the curriculum for that subject, but the modulars focus just on a particular group of standards. The results are immediate. We used to have some hand scoring involved with the reading assessments and the writing assessments, but they don't have that anymore. And you get the second the kid logs off, you have access to their results. We can get question level results. And like I said, you can see the students' answers. Obviously, you can tell I really like these things. I think they are the best things since sliced bread. Sounds a little stupid, but I really do. I think they're great. Especially for 3rd graders who, the first time they see these tests is in April when they're taking the summative, they're going to panic. You could give the 3rd grade test now to the 3rd graders, and they probably wouldn't be able to answer very many of the questions. So give them the answers. Put the answers right next to them because you can see the questions beforehand. Put the answers next to them and just have them enter in the answers so they can start practicing. A lot of what the benefit of this is that the students get to practice. But another huge benefit is that the teachers get to see the questions. So very often, I'm a math person and I'll read a math standard and I'll say, oh, I know what that means. But then I'll look at one of the questions on the SAS assessment and I'll go, oh my gosh, that's what it means. Oh, so I have to change what I'm teaching. Therefore, the data is going to help me change my instruction. I want to show you how one teacher that I know how her scores were and are now. This is SBAC in 2014-15, and this is a report from the airask.org system for the SBAC. For the first year of the SBAC, 50% of her students were proficient. For the 2nd year of the SBAC, 50% of her students were proficient. The next year, she started using these benchmark assessments, and her students went up to 88% proficient, which of course could have been just the students. But then if you look the next year, she was at 88%. And last year, she was at 84%. So having her focus on the questions and understand what's being asked and understanding the standards better helped her to teach her students better. And we very often would say, okay, well, she's just teaching the test. But if the test is testing what we want our students to learn, then you should be teaching to the test. So these really work for that. We have the interim and the modular assessments and the summatives. The summatives are in the spring. So the interim and the modulars, like I said, the interims teach test all of the content of one of those subjects. They won't have a question for every standard, but for most of the standards, there will be a question or two. The modulars just focus on a smaller set of related concepts. So just the fractions, or just numbers in base 10, or just reading informational text, writing, an informative piece. So just smaller pieces. These are the different choices that you have. I feel like I'm going very fast and I don't see any questions. So please stop me if I'm going too fast and ask a question, and I will notice. And remember, if you have a question, I'm sure everybody else does too. So please ask. So these are the choices for the modulars. For math, you've got math 3 through 8, ELA 3 through 8, and science 5, 8, and 11. And remember here that the 8th graders, 7th graders, and 6th graders can take the 5th grade science test, and they can do that right now, and that might give some information to the science teachers. So those are the 3 subjects. For writing, these are the options. You have an editing, you have 2 versions of editing or 3 versions of each one of these. Editing, informational text, listening or speaking and listening, and literature. For writing, 3 to 5, it's an informative piece or an opinion piece. And 6 to 8, it's informative piece or an argumentative piece. So as a teacher, once you finish teaching one of these units, you could give a test on these topics. Measurement and data, math grades 3 through 5, there's a choice for measurement and data and geometry, which actually are 2 of the domains put together. There's a choice for numbers and operations base 10, numbers and operations fractions, and operations and algebraic thinking. And you can see here 6 through 7 and 8, they're a little bit different. Each grade is a little bit different, but it covers all the standards and all the domains for math. Science, you have tons of choices, and really I strongly urge you to look at these questions. The science tests I think is very hard. It would help the science teachers if they would look at these and really see what kind of things the standards are saying they're supposed to be teaching, and how the questions are worded. It would help a lot. So I would strongly suggest all teachers to log in and look at these. These are all the different options. Each of these, for the math and ELA, there are a different number of questions for the modulars. You could have 5 questions or 15 questions. These are pretty much the same. You could have somewhere between, for the science, it looks like, I haven't looked at all of them, but for most of the ones I've seen, you'll get one situation that they read, and then they have to answer 5, 6, 7 questions about a certain experiment or something that's set up. This is the website. So this is how you access the assessments. It's the exact same way that you access the results for the summative. It's the way you access the summatives. It's the way you set up the summative so that the students can take it. So it's the New Hampshire portal, airask.org. Remember, you can download this PowerPoint so that you will have all this information. If you've ever been there, this will look very familiar. This will look very familiar. This is what it looks like. And the first thing you do when you come to this main page is go to test administration. Originally, we were going to this practice and training test, but you don't have to go there anymore. We can go straight to test administration, and this screen will be brought up. There are actually 9 boxes here. I call it the 9-box page because there are 9 boxes. Here, I actually put 9 boxes here. So these are the 9 boxes. And I'm just going to quickly go over what each one is for. So this is the second page once you're on. This test administration page is where you actually go and administer the test. So I'm not going to go into there yet, but that's how you administer it. The online reporting system is where you get the results for the summative assessment. This is the practice and training site. I don't use that very much because there are other ways to practice it. I use that originally that was the only way, but there are other ways now. Tide is where all the student information is and all the user information, all the teachers, the level of access that they have. Rosters are set up in there. Accommodations for IEPs are set up in there. So all the student and teacher user information is in there. This, if you've been on this year, you know you had to take this test administration certificate class. It was about 20, 30 minutes to take the class. You had to go through it or it wasn't going to let you log on. And if you haven't done it yet, you will have to do it. This is a great place to go, the assessment viewing application, and we'll go in there. This is where you can see all the modular assessments. You can see what the questions are before you give the test to the kids. So you can pick the ones you want. Airways, this is where you get the results from the modulars and the interims. Remember, this is where you get the summatives, this online reporting. This is where you get the modular reports. Test administration resources are a lot of documents, help documents. They're very helpful. There's lots of information out there. And the inbox is if you download anything from the system, it ends up in your inbox. So that's what the 9box page is for. So what are they and why should I use them? Hopefully that answers that. Please ask questions. So what are the questions like? You click on, I'm going to go back. What are the questions like? When you first log on, you go to a different page. You click test administration, and then here's the 9box page with we don't have 9 out there, sorry, only 8. We're going to look at the questions. So we're going to go to the assess. This is like the main, if nothing else happens with the system in your school, the most important thing that can happen is for teachers to look at the assessments, and this is where they do it. It's the first thing they should do if they're going to use the assessments, and if they're going to do nothing else, they should look at them. So you go to the assessment viewing application. I always get this pop-up blocker, and all you have to do is try again. Select the grade. I want to look at the assessment, so I want to look at the 5th grade assessment. And, oh, I brought up the 6th grade, I'm sorry. So here's the 6th grade test, if I had chosen 6th grade. These are the available math tests for 6th grade, available science tests for 6th grade. Actually, that is in the middle there. There are a few more, but this is the whole huge list of them. And if you go onto the assessment viewing application, you'll see them. I'm going to go back. Yeah, there's a few blocked out there. Sorry about that. So these are all that list for 6th grade ELA. 6th grade math with a few hidden under there. And the way you read them is modular 6th grade expressions and equations. And that's A. This is the same one, math grade expressions and equations B. So this is the second version. It's a different version of the expressions and equations. And there's actually, since this is a pretty important area for math in 6th grade, there's a C version. Ratios and proportions, there's an A version and a B version and a C version. Usually there are 2 versions. Science, there's only 1 version of each type. Here's the 5th grade. So there's 5th grade. Once I choose the assessment I want to look at, I'm going to go back. I don't know why this is right in the middle there, but I'm going to choose the assessment that I want to look at. And I want to look at operations and algebraic thinking A, or no, numbers and operations A. So I would click on that. And then it's going to tell me I have to choose which form I want, as if there are 2 different options here, and there aren't. So you have to pick the first one. You can pick the second one, but it'll tell you there's nothing there. So you select which form you want, and you click on next. And it will immediately bring you to the questions. So this is a sample of one of those questions for 5th grade. And if the standard for this it talks about adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators or mixed numbers. But this is a surprise to many teachers that this is the equation where they have to add and subtract. This is not just straight adding and subtracting mixed numbers. And the kids can panic a little when they see a question like this. But if teachers look at this first, they'll see that that's the kind of question they may get. In order to move on, you have to put an answer in and then click on next. Here's another example of a question. If I wanted to look at the ELA assessments, I'd go to the 6th grade and pick one of the ELA ones. So I'll pick one. I'll pick the informational text ELA. Now I have to listen to a sound. Some of you probably know. You won't be able to hear it here, but you listen to the sound. If you hear it, you go next. If you didn't hear it, then there's something wrong with your computer, but you'll be able to fix that. Once you select the assessment, this is what it looks like. It's a lot of words. You can scroll up and down here and choose questions by clicking here. I can't move forward though until I answer A and B. So once I put in an answer for A and B, I can click on 2 and move to it. So any questions? Those were 2 very quick samples of a 5th grade, a couple questions from 5th grade and a couple of questions from 6th grade. No questions? Nobody's asking questions. With all of you out there, somebody must have a question. So we looked at the questions, and I would really strongly suggest that whatever grade you're teaching, you look at those questions, or whatever subject. So how do I administer them? The teachers and the staff who have already administered the summatives, this will look completely familiar because it's almost identical. You first click on Test Administration, and you come to the 9-box page, and you click on Test Administration again. You will probably get this blocker, and this is a different blocker where you have to actually unblock it. So you have to always allow the pop-ups from this site. You click Done, and the next time you log on, you're going to get the same message, and you'll have to do it all over again. So once you get through all the pop-up blockers, you will be here. And you've got the interims to choose from, the modulars, and the Braille modulars. If you have, I've never used the Braille, so I don't know how that works. I'm sorry. If you want some information, you can call and we can talk to the people, we can talk to the site that made this and see how that works. But if you have someone who needs Braille, you probably already know. So the interims are the versions, the longer versions of the test. If you click on the plus sign right here, it says use the plus signs. So if you see a plus sign and you want to go in there, click on the plus sign. So I clicked on the interim plus sign. And now I want to give a math assessment. So I'm going to click on the plus sign, and I can choose any of these grades. Whichever grade I choose, I'm going to have questions for the whole grade level, grade spectrum of the curriculum for grade 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. I can't narrow it down any more than that. It's just all of the standards are covered, most of the standards are covered. And there is no plus sign, so I don't have to click a plus sign anymore. I can choose, at that point I could have chosen the assessment that I wanted. So I'm going to, if I choose this instead of the plus sign, this is what happens. All of these are chosen, which is fine if that's what I want, but probably I'm really focusing on just one grade. So you really do want to click on the plus sign and then just choose the one you want. I'm going to close that. So really what we're looking for here are the modulars. So I'm going to click on the plus sign. And then again, on the plus signs, I want math. And now what grade do I want? 5th grade. Luckily, I put a circle there so I would remember. So, okay, I want 5th grade. I don't want all of 5th grade. I just want to open it up and see what my choices are. And here are all my choices. I've got that whole list of choices: measurement data A or B or C, numbers in operation A or B, and the list continues. So for this, I want to give my students the B and the C, and some students will take B, some will take C. I can choose that later. Once I've chosen the assessment, I click on Live, and this screen comes up. This is where I can choose what type of test I want to give. The test doesn't change. All the questions are stable, and they match exactly with those that you saw in the assessment viewing application. But here, if this is a pretest, I can label it a pretest, post-test, post-test, fall, fall. The thing you want to be careful of, though, is if you have 4 4th grades in your school, and Mrs. Smith's 4th grade chooses unassigned, and Mr. Jones' 4th grade chooses pretest, and somebody else's chooses fall, and I said 4, so one other chooses fall. When you look at the results, and you'll see this when we look at the results, they won't all be together. You're going to have to download them to a spreadsheet and sort through them, which isn't always a bad idea anyway. But you want teachers to pick the same reason code when they're giving an assessment. If they give an assessment in the fall, they can all pick fall, or they can all pick pretest, or whatever they want. And the next time, if they give measurement and data A in October, they could call that a fall assessment. If they give measurement and data A a couple months later, then could all choose winter. But they all should choose the same reason. You choose it and click OK. And this starts out. If you've done this before, it will look familiar. The students need this number. You can put it on the board. And they also need a couple other things. They need their test ticket, which looks something like this. This is a fake one. And they get a screen when they log on that looks like this. Oops, sorry, I'm going to go back. They enter in the SAS that's on the card, their first name as it's written on the card, even if it's spelled wrong, and then the session ID. I'm going to go back. Here is the session ID. So this, if you've done this before, you know it. And the kids know it by now, except for third grade. So this session ID, I usually put it on the board or somewhere where all the students can see it, and they need to enter that in to the session ID and then sign in. Okay, so that's why should I take them? What do the questions look like, and how do I administer them? And again, I feel like I'm going through this very fast. I'm going to go right here. I do have a question. But why is the video lagging behind the sound? If that's true for everybody, I don't know why that is. So my talking is ahead of what I'm showing. Is that, maybe that's making it very confusing, I would guess. Yes, I will slow down my talking, maybe. Let's see if that helps. And I don't know if it's my computer or your computer or the webinar, I don't know. I'll just slow down. So now we want to see the students. Thank you for telling me that. Assume your students now have taken a test, and I can't do this live because I can't show you another district's results, but we want to look at the results. So I'll click here, and hopefully you get there. So again, you're on, this is the main page. You click on Test Administration, and I'll wait. And then to look at the results of the benchmark and interims, you go to Airways down here. Oops. This is something like what you will get. You'll get a list of the assessments that your teachers have administered. I got to move it over here. So for this school, can you read this? It's so small. The benchmark module for math, grade 3, numbers and operations B. And this is math grade 3, numbers and operation B. So you can see here what happened. This third grade teacher called hers a pretest and the other one called it unassigned. So I can't look at the third grade altogether because they're separated. So I really do want them all to take the same test reason. For this example, this is math grade 4, numbers and operations A. They all picked the same one. Here are 84 of them. So we're going to look at that one. The average scores are here, student count, average scores. And these 27% were low, 50% were at or near, and 23 were on or above. 23%. So when I want to dig in a little deeper. So I'm going to click on this. And you come to here, which is a very similar report. This would be a teacher's name. These would all be teachers' names. Each of these rows are teachers. This is the whole grade. This teacher, 93% of her students took the test. The students in her roster. The only way you get these teachers are through rosters. The average score is listed next. And then you can see how her class did. Same with the rest. You can open these up and look at the 5 items on which the students did the best and the 5 items on which the students did the worst, which is great. So you can say, okay, wow, this is great. I taught this well. The students all learned it, whatever these questions are. And then you come here and say, oh, okay, I've got to work on these. What are they? So only 17, or here, 0% of the students got question 12 right. I really want to look at what that is. 17% got this one right. This is worth 2 points, and that can be a little misleading. The way the system works, it gives you the average. So if you know, you've got 20 students in your class and 10 of them get the right answer on this particular question, you'd get a 50% because it would add up 10 and divide it by 20. For this one, it's going to add up all the scores and divide it by the number of students. So if half of your class gets a 2 and half of your class gets a 0, you're going to end up with a score of 100%. So when there are 2 points, you have to just be careful. And if that doesn't make sense, you can send me an email or call me and I can explain it again. But just be aware that this is not a valid number for when it's 2 points. You can also look at the total items. So that was the 5 best and the 5 worst, and here they are in order. You can see, so this is the teacher, 100% of this teacher's class got this one right, etc. Now, if I want to look at it by student, I click there. It's the same report. Each one of these is a student. This is the score they got. And I don't know what that score means. It doesn't really mean anything to me. You can sort it high to low and put the students in order that way, but that score doesn't mean anything to me, which is why I like to download these scores and put them into a spreadsheet. Then I can give them a percentage based on how many they got right, because this doesn't mean anything. And low, I mean, they're low, that we know that. On or above is on or above, but at or approaching, what does that mean? How are they closer to low, or are they closer to the top? I don't know. So I really do like to look in a spreadsheet. But this is by students. I want to look at this question. This is one we did really well on. Oh yeah, I look at that and go, oh, well, obviously I can see why they did well on that. They all know how to do that. Here's one that only 20% of the students got, and well, it says it's worth 2 points, so who knows? Oh yeah, that's where I should have told you about the 2 points. If you want to download this, oh, I've got so many questions. Hold on, I'm going to stop for a second and answer a couple questions. Do we have to sign up for the modulars ahead of time to get the ID numbers? You don't have to sign up for them, and I think you mean the student ID numbers. I will show you how to get those. You can, if you're a teacher and you have a roster set up, you can get them yourself. If you are a teacher and you don't have a roster set up, you can't get them. You'll have to get an administrator to get them. Is a misspelling in regards to the names indicative of a typo in the system that needs to be fixed at a higher level? Yes. If the student gets their test ticket and the name is spelled wrong, very often the names are backwards, like their last name is their first name is their last name. But if they're spelled wrong, or if they're backwards, you have to go back to your student system where you enter in your students when they start school. So it starts right back at your school, and that will get loaded into I4C, and that will get loaded right to here. So you have to go that long route, but they can type in a wrong name. That's okay. If they can handle it, it's fine. Somebody asked, I missed the difference between A and B. And I think we're going back to what's the difference between if I have operations and algebraic thinking A or operations and algebraic thinking B. The difference is it's a set of different questions. So operations and algebraic thinking could have 10 questions and for A, and B might have 9 questions or 10 questions, but they're just different questions. You have to be careful. A lot of people want to use those. Thank you for this question. As a pretest, you might want to use A, and as a post-test, you use B because it's operations and algebraic thinking. But you can't really do that because the difficulty level is not the same. Even though I think they tried, that was the plan, it didn't work out that way. So A could be harder than B, B could be harder than A. Some could be all multiple choice, and the other ones all fill in the blank. So you really have to look at the assessment before you give it. So let's see. So where was I? Downloading the data. Whoops. So like I said, I like to download the data. To do that, you have to have it open to the student, to be looking at students, not teachers. And you click on print, and that brings you to this page. Summary and items. Make sure that's clicked, and then save to CSV, and then confirm. Oops, I can now they show you the little arrows. Okay, and then confirm. This is a spreadsheet that was that I could have downloaded. It is an actual one, but one of the reasons I like to download it is you can set it up like this. So here are all my students. Here are my scores, and I've got the answers in here. Across the top, I've got the answers, the questions, 10, 1, 3. They're not in order chronologically. They're in order from the question that the students did the best on to the question that the students did the worst on. And the good thing about that is when I'm working with teachers, I really like them to look at what went well first, because otherwise, it's kind of depressing just looking at what didn't go well. So, okay, 100% of the students got this right. Let's look at it. Yay, they can multiply a 2-digit number by a 2-digit number. Yay, they can compare two fractions. Yay, they can divide within 100. Yes, I know that. My students can do that. Okay, let's look at the other side. They can multiply a 2-digit number by wait, only 44% of them can do it here. And wait, only 25% can do it here. These are the same. So it's coming out high and low. And this actually did happen. So if I had just come to the low end first, I would have gone, wait a minute, I know they can multiply a 2-digit number by a 2-digit number. I guess I'm going to have to go back and do it again. I'm going to have to go back and teach them to compare fractions again. When they obviously know how to do it. And if we hadn't checked the high first, we wouldn't have known. I'd ask you if you want to guess what the reason is, but since I can't hear you, it might not work. But usually when people guess, it's, oh, they were word problems versus computation. Nope, they were all word problems. Or these were harder than those. These were 2 steps, those were 1 step. But that wasn't it. What we ended up doing was taking the test, cutting it apart, and laying it out in order from high to low on the table. And we looked, and what we noticed was that all the ones that the students did well on had pictures. And all the ones that the students didn't do well on did not have pictures. So what we learned from that was that not that we had to teach multiplication again or comparing 2 fractions or dividing within 100, we had to stop and teach our students to draw pictures to solve problems. So this helps to really dig into the data when you can really access the questions and sort it the way you want. So that is what the results look like. Any questions on that? It's pretty simple to use that. If you want to download it and you know Excel, it's a piece of cake. If you want to download it and you don't know Excel, you can probably find someone in your building who loves Excel, as crazy as that sounds. But there's always those people who love Excel. But otherwise, it's pretty easy to look at the results in the system. Okay, now to the TIDE system, which is where all the users and the students and the accommodations are set up, and where you can print test tickets. So I'll show you this. And you can give access to different grades. So again, you come to the 9-box page and you click on TIDE, and this is the screen that comes up. And if you want to print test tickets, you click on print testing tickets. So this was the question that someone just asked. And you do want to print a whole list of students, like from a whole grade, or just from the roster list. So if it's for the whole grade, then you can do the student list. If you have rosters set up, and not all schools do, you can pick by the roster and just print a group for each roster. So we'll do it from the student list. I'm going to choose the grade and I'm going to search. And I want to view the results. Each of these rows is a student. And I want to print this student test ticket and this student test ticket, and only those 2. So I just put a check mark on those 2. I click on print, select the test tickets or my selected test tickets. I come to a page that looks like this. You can make them any size you want, or not any size, but these 4 options. Generally, this size is what most people choose. And you print. They're downloaded. They look something like this. And you can print them. If you want to work on accommodations and supports, you would do that through TIDE. And I'll show you in a second. I'm going to skip something. So again, I choose the grade and search. If you know the student's name, you can actually put the last name in and the first name if you want, but either way works. And search. I want to look at this student. The name is hidden, but I want to look at this student, and I'm just going to click on that edit button. And I'll be brought into the student's TIDE information. So here's some embedded designated supports. And you just scroll down and pick the supports that the student needs. And they really just follow, if you have the document that you fill out to talk about which accommodation students get, it just follows that and you just select them. Now, if you want your fifth grader to take a third grade test or your third grader to take a fifth grade test, you also go into Tide. Same thing, well, a little bit similar. You go into students, view the students, choose the grade. I guess I forgot that in the other one. Find the student. So again, you click on the student right there, edit. And then you scroll down a page. And on this page, since this is a sixth grade student, for the math interim eligibility interim testing grade, it's set up at grade 6 because it's a sixth grade student. But I want them to take all. Or when I go in here, I just select all. You don't need to just, I'm going to take a third grade test, just pick the third grade test. Just select all. It's a lot easier. There also is a way to upload this information, and that's here. So you would go to Tide Students, upload interim grades. You download a template, and that will download a spreadsheet, either Excel or a CSV. You put in the student ID, and here you put in the grade. So if it's a fifth grade, if you want them to take a fifth grade test and they're not a fifth grader, you put in 5. Here you put in you select the subject, and here, oh yes, wait, I'm sorry, I have to go back because I said that wrong, didn't I? Oh yes, I guess this is the grade they're in. I might have to check that out. I've actually never tried the upload way. So I think this is the grade they're in, and this is the grade that you want them to take the interim test for. Once you create that spreadsheet, you find it, and then it will, you browse your file, and then you next, and it will upload it. Okay, so we covered, if you want to use the interim assessment, the first thing you should do is look at the assessments. Look at which one, look at the questions, go into the assessment viewing application and find the test you want to give. If you just taught a unit on editing text, then select the editing text one. Next, you have to go in and set up accommodations, or you don't. I mean, you can or you're not. You don't have whichever. For the modular test, you don't have to have the accommodations, but it's nice. Change access to grade levels if you want to. Print the test tickets, and then distribute the test tickets and start the live section. When the kids log off, your results are ready. So you go to the assessments through this New Hampshire nh.portal.airasked.org, and you could put this slide, this PowerPoint next to your browser and follow it to do that. Okay, so that is really, I have given you all the information I have on them. They are the best things. They help the teachers focus on what they're supposed to be teaching. And then they help them identify if what they taught was actually learned. And then the kids can get used to taking the test, especially for the third graders. The more often they have access to the system to play around with it, when it's time for the summative tests, they are ready to go. So I love them. I can't say enough about them. And I really don't have any more to say. So what I'd like, all 3 of us are available, but this is my information here. Please call or send me an email if you have any questions, or ask me a question right now. This is the end of the webinar. I will stay on for a few minutes. So I can unmute you if you have some questions. Right now everybody's muted, but I can unmute you. And just send me a question telling me that you'd like to be unmuted, and I will do that. Thank you for attending, and I will be here for a few minutes. Thank you. Okay, nobody seems to have any further questions, so I will sign off now. Thank you very much for joining us, and hope to See you next time. Bye.